Welcome to the Bringing Hope Home podcast. We're Bryce and Colette Schaefer, pastors, teachers, and madly in love empty nesters. We invite you into our home as we candidly share faith-filled, practical ways to build a strong and lasting marriage. Hey, we're back. We're Bryce and Colette Schaefer, and here with another episode of Bringing Hope Home. We're glad that you're with us today, and today we're talking about finances, which when you're dealing with a marriage and family, this is one of the top
It is. It is one of the top three stressors
in a marriage. A lot of times why marriages don't work.
Right, because you haven't figured out your financial planning quite right as a couple. It says, you can look up a lot of different statistics on this and do your own research, but the one that I found the other day was 66% of marriages say finances are one of their biggest stressors.
And I would say, finances through the years has always been probably one of our biggest stressors because, everything else has been pretty good. But finances, when you're limited finances, it can be very, very stressful.
And
when you have more month than money.
Right. And it's interesting, too. I found another stat that said, I'll read it to you, 18% of people making over $100,000 still live paycheck to paycheck.
That's crazy.
That is crazy to me. And that's just an individual. That's not just two incomes coming together. That's just one person. Because we live up to the standard of our money. When we get a raise, what do we do? We go spend more. We can buy that car. We can go get that house.
Yeah, finally get what you haven't been able to. You finally go do it.
Oh, and that's kind of a problem. We go take the vacation. And it said that 35% of these people, it said that they couldn't afford a $400 extra expense, like an unexpected car expense or home expense. That's scary. It means we're in debt with credit cards and we're serving our debt rather than our money serving us.
Also says, really, there's no need to look at compare yourself to the Joneses.
Right.
Saying they have more than us or whatever, because everybody is dealing with some kind. You can be making so much money, but if you're not managing it correctly, you're still it's a financial stress.
Right. Yeah. And it might be all a facade.
Right.
So, don't look at the Joneses. Just look at your lane. And what we need to do and what we need to focus on is lining your values and your plan as a couple, spouse, as a family, aligning up your goals and dreams and values with your money and make your money work for you, not you work for your money.
And one of the reasons why this is so important is the Bible says that you can't serve God and mammon or God and money, which means that you're either trusting your finances or you're going to trust God. And it also says where your money is, your heart is also. So, you can really see what is important to you if you go through and if you still keep a checkbook, account or go into your bank account, see where you've spent your money. You can really see, where does my attention lie? Where have we as a couple, as a family, given our attention to? What is our trust in? As we talked about last time, where is our distractions? All of those things, our money says a lot about just our lifestyle and where we are spiritually and physically.
Right. And I would want to challenge you, and you need to try to get to the point of, if God tells you to do something financially, you have the wherewithal to do it. One of the biggest, distractions of the devil is to get you so tied up with your finances and life that when God prompts your heart, pricks your heart, give to that person or go on that mission trip or whatever the case may be, and you say, I can't because of time or money, you've probably missed it along the way. You really have. When we've taken our kids on mission trips and then we've taken them on vacations, They say the enrichment and the blessing that they got out of the mission trips were way greater than anything else.
Yeah.
No, and I know parents sometimes you say, "Well, I'll send my kid on a youth mission trip." That's great, and that's a good start. But what about you going there as well? Why don't you, lead the way and say, "I'm going to take time out too. I can make a margin for God to go make a difference." Those kind of things. And there is stepping out in faith. We could spend more than just today's podcast on finances. And that's why we do have coaching. And we're not financial coaches, but we are definitely life coaches, marriage coaches, and that finances do play a role in it. So
we do talk about a whole section of finance.
Right. Schedule a free call with us today, and we'd love to help you out. But, that's important. And one of the things we found out, we read Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace book way back 20 plus years ago.
That was huge in getting us freedom, really. We've lived debt-free for many, many years. And that was an integral part.
And it didn't say this, but what we chose to do, and just to give you a little insight, we said we don't have a lot of money. We have more month than money usually, but what we're going to do is we're going to do a 3-prong approach. We have our expenses, we have our debts, and then we need to start saving. So let's start this 3-prong approach of figuring things out and putting our money into work for us. And maybe that means we can't do certain things for expenses because we need it to shift over for our debts or, savings. I remember you holding a garage sale, said to the family, we're going to hold a garage sale to get that first $1,000 in the savings account. We were determined. So kids, Bryce, me, we're going to sacrifice some things to get this ball rolling, and I think that's really important. And, we always thought of the debt snowball, start with your smallest and pick that one off. It's like a race and your goals, and you're going to go after that next one that's in front of you, the one that's closest. And so I think of it as a race sometimes. That's how I viewed it.
Yeah. And, the one thing that we always did, and I think has caused the blessing, God's blessing on our marriage and in our life and finances, is tithing. We've always come back to that is number one and important in our lives, that we're going to honor God with what he has given us. And so we're going to tithe. And even when we hardly had, it was like, okay, God, we don't have the money. It looks like we can't tithe because we need this money to pay this bill or whatever, But when we put our hearts and minds and said, no, we're going to honor God first, God always has seen to it to get us through.
Right.
There hasn't been a month yet, but we're still here.
That's right.
And he has provided all of our needs.
Praise the Lord.
And so I encourage you, if you haven't done that yet, just purpose in your heart that we're going to start tithing, and giving to God and honoring him.
Yeah. Well, and I think, here's another thing to look at, and this is what we had to do. We knew every month was going to be tight, and we knew we wanted to tithe. So here's one of the things that I chose to do, and I don't know if we ever talked about it, but it was one of those, like I knew electric bill, I needed to pay my electric bill. But if I didn't have the money to tithe and my electric bill, then my electric bill would have to come first because I didn't want to ever default. So one of the things we did is we said, okay, in the summer, we're going to turn it up so there's less electricity being used ahead of time. Or in the winter, we're going to turn it down so the heat isn't on as much. Let's wear a sweater. So we knew at the end of the month that bill wouldn't be as big too. Don't go out for that coffee or this other thing, or meet for coffee and don't get the latte, just get the $2 coffee.
Which, this is what we've always preached, the natural and the spiritual coming together, right? You got to do the spiritual and the natural. Don't just tithe and say, well, God's going to meet all of my needs and be dumb and spend it on things that you don't need. No, be wise with your finances as well. So, both of those, I think, is what you're saying.
Right. Be both. Yeah, bring together. Now, here's another interesting thing. When you're a couple, not only are we different in lots of areas as husband and wife, but we're also usually different on our value of money and where money needs to go. As people, men and women look at money differently. There's silly memes out there about girl math. It's a real thing. And,
I'm pretty good at that math. I'm not good at math, but I'm pretty good at girl math.
Yeah. So, and that can lead to frustration in life. Or guys, we got to have our beer money, or we've got to have our guy money, those kind of things. And so learning to, again, communicate with your spouse about the value of money to you and where you place it, and then understanding each other, saying, again, going back to, I hear you saying this is important to you. You want to spend money here.
And, it's true. If you, again, try to compare yourself to somebody else, well, they have money to do this. Well, their value of what is important to them might be different, right? You might see them going on a lot of vacations. Well, maybe they're putting more value on experiences, and you're putting more value on a vehicle. It's really where, and so as a couple, you got to come, okay, where is our values? Do we want the experiences in life? Do we want to take those trips?
Is our car important?
Or is our car important? Is our house important? Is our,
kids, following our kids and
different activities? What is it that, is going to propel your family? Not take away from God. We don't want our money, again, to be a distraction and those things to be distractions and taking us from God. So what is going to align with God and what is going to align with our values as a family and move us forward? Those are the things that we really need to
together. And everything else can fall into place after you align those up, I think. And again, it's not about how much you make. It's how you choose to do with what you have. It really, again, that stat that I found, that 18% of people in that $100,000 income bracket are living paycheck to paycheck. And that's just hard for me to fathom sometimes. But there's always the next neighborhood. There's always that next level. And that's not good. So you got to, again, figure those things out and align yourself with not stuff, align yourself with your values and how things go about with that. Another thought here with money and finances, money is about the long game, not the short-term success in money. We always hear about lottery winners and how one day they have it and then, money cometh and money goeth, taketh away.
There's no discipline.
There's no discipline. They didn't have the mindset to start with, and they kept their same mindset, and they didn't play the long game with it. They just chose to frivolously deal with that money. And so after a year or two or whatever, depending on how big that lottery check was, it's gone. And here is, again, I like the three-prong approach. If I would win the lottery, we don't play the lottery, but if, you did something like that, came into some money, first of all, is there some debts that you have to deal with? Is it, give God, first place in that. And debts, maybe a vacation in there. But then how can we play the long game with our money? How can we, again, make our money work for us rather than us work for our money? And there's investment people out there that are great, that aren't just out for their own financial interests. So find those people. Even you don't have to have a financial guru, that you pay. There's just people out there that we all know. Well, how are you making it work? Don't give me your specifics, but what's your mindset? Pick their brain. We always say, pick somebody that you see a successful marriage. Go take them out to lunch or dinner. Ask them about how they've, handled this issue or that issue in a marriage. Do the same with finances.
And before, if you're not married yet, this is a good topic to be talking about as you're getting married. If you have an engaged, a fiance, these are some conversations. How do you spend money? What are your value? What do you see as important in your life? How much debt do you have? How do you use credit cards? All of those conversations. Do you tithe? Do you give? What is important to you? You're going to find a lot about a person from their bank account. And then, how you move forward. I would say it would save a lot of divorces if you talk about those things.
And are okay with it ahead of time.
Now, if you find yourself, you're in the middle of marriage and you're secretive even about those things, you need to get on the same page and open up about finances, right? I mean, it can't be, if you're having this relationship with the two of you, finances is a big part that you need to have full disclosure with your spouse. So that's
and again, it's all about being intentional and have the right mindset on what you're wanting in the alignment of your life and your money. And if I'm dreaming big, well, then how am I getting there? What's the plan? And the plan doesn't have to always be executed because life happens and you change your plans. But that's where, but to have a plan. Where are your values in alignment of those things?
Right. All right. Well, we covered quite a bit today with this, and there's so much more that we could talk about. But we're going to stop it there because we gave you a lot. I know you'd like to keep going. But
I get it.
Anyway, we would really appreciate if you would subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe, and it helps get the word out about this podcast, or share it with somebody. All of these platforms have a little share button. You can share it and tell other people about it. That would just really bless us. And if you want to give, we're talking about finances, and if you're looking for someplace to give, we are a 501c3.
That's right.
So there is a giving information that you can give to our ministry that, we help bring hope home. So until next time, thank you for being with us, and let's do just that. Bring hope home to your life today. If you're listening on the Apple Podcast app, give us a 5-star rating and drop a review. If you're listening on Spotify, give us a follow. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. See you next week.